I'm going to talk about how I got started writing, my journey to this place, if you will, where I'm coming from and where I'm going. I hope you'll find parts of it entertaining and edifying. I guess I'll start at the beginning. I was born a poor black child. I remember the days sitting on the porch with my family, singing and a-dancing down in Mississippi. Or maybe that was somebody else, Steve Martin in The Jerk. I was born and raised in Manhattan. I was a bit of a shut-in. I would have preferred to have been a sickly child, but it didn't work out that way. I always like it when you read a biography of someone like James Joyce, and it says, they were a sickly child and forced to retreat into a world of imagination. It sounds so wonderful. Instead, I just didn't like going outside. I like to hang around watching The Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits. I read a lot of comic books and science fiction, and I adored Stephen King. And from an early age, it seemed that being a writer could be a great gig. If you were a writer, you could work from home. You didn't have to wear clothes or talk to people. And you could just make up stuff all day. So until I got to college and started reading different kinds of fiction, the modernists and the so-called classics, I wanted to write The Black Shining or The Black Salem's Lot. Basically, if you took any Stephen King title and put the black in front of it, that's what I wanted to do. And then, freshman year, I started reading the modernists and the so-called highbrow stuff. And I liked the equivalency I saw between the horror and science fiction that I adored growing up and magic realism in Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the absurdity of Beckett, the mythical landscapes of Borges. Someone like Beckett, I found him to be a form of high realism. A guy is buried in his neck in sand and can't move. He has an itch on his leg he can't scratch. That sounds like Monday morning to me. So I considered myself a writer in college, but didn't actually sit down and write anything, which apparently is part of the process. I wore black and smoked cigarettes, but never actually composed anything until I finally wrote two 5-page stories, two 5-page epics that I used to audition for the creative writing classes, and I was turned down each time. Looking back, I was very depressed over being rejected, but when you're a writer, no one likes your stuff, everyone hates you, and if you internalize that rejection early, it'll serve you in good stead later on when you're out in the world. I was very lucky when I got out of college. I got a job at the Village Voice, the alternative newspaper in New York City. If you're not familiar with the Village Voice, the only thing you have to know is that when you were there, it was at its height, and when you left, it went downhill. So I was very self-conscious as a writer. I worked in the book section of the paper, and I didn't want to write that cliched first novel that's autobiographical, where you get back at everyone who wronged you when you were a child. I want to save that for my fourth book, Sag Harbor. So I decided to write a novel, improbably enough, about a Gary Coleman-esque child star who has misadventures as he grows up. I got an agent, and we started sending it out, and then we started hearing back from people. And I, for one, was very surprised that a book about the adventures of a Gary Coleman-esque child star would fail to find its footing in the marketplace. And I began to have some really bizarre thoughts as the rejection slips began to accumulate. Maybe I wasn't cut out for this writing thing. I started thinking about what else I might be able to do. My parents were of that generation that if you're an able-bodied black person, it was your duty to make something of yourself, uplift the race, become a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant. And I got very depressed thinking about all this. And then I thought, maybe I have no choice. Maybe it's out of my hands. So as I sat in my dirty studio apartment, watching Jerry Springer, indeed relating all too deeply to Jerry Springer, I realized that I was a recipient of all that sit-on-your-ass, muse-about-crap-all-day DNA. And it didn't matter that no one liked what I was doing. I had no choice but to start again. And maybe it might work out better this time. And it did. So, thank you.